The colony of Dawnspire rested under a foreign sun. Its fields stretched wide, filled with green crops that bent gently in the wind. Families had built homes of stone and steel. Children played near the rivers, their voices bright under the strange blue sky. To the people living there, this place was no longer only a colony. It was home. Every morning, workers went into the mines, pulling rare metals from deep under the ground. Traders filled the market square, selling food, water, and machines. The people believed they had a safe future. Earth was far, but still watching. Humanity had come so far, and Dawnspire was proof. But on one silent night, everything changed. It began with a sound in the sky. At first, only a few heard it, a low hum like thunder hidden behind the stars. Children looked up and pointed. Farmers stepped out of their houses. The hum grew louder. The clouds above twisted, breaking apart as giant shadows moved across the night. One farmer whispered, "Ships, but not ours." The first blast came without warning. A spear of fire struck the mining station on the hill. The ground shook, a tower of flames climbing high. Workers inside never had the chance to scream. The second blast tore through the settlement's water plant, and the night sky turned red. Alarms rang, but too late. The people ran. Mothers carried children. Fathers shouted for their families to stay together. Soldiers tried to fire their weapons, but the attackers were not human. Their warships were black and sharp, shaped like knives cutting through the sky. They moved with perfect silence except for the screams they left behind. From the comm station, officers tried to send a message to Earth. Their voices were sharp with fear. "This is Dawnspire. We are under attack! Enemy ships in orbit. Please." Static swallowed the rest. Above the colony, alien voices echoed through open channels. They spoke in a language twisted and cruel, but their message was soon clear. The translation systems caught it, and one sentence repeated again and again. "You do not belong among the stars." The people of Dawnspire had no chance. One by one, their homes turned to ash. Whole streets disappeared in fire. Families vanished. The rivers boiled as burning wreckage fell into them. In less than an hour, the colony that had taken years to build was nothing more than ruins under a black sky. And then, silence. In that silence, a single ship escaped. Small, weak, its engines failing but carrying survivors. Inside were only a few dozen, miners, soldiers, and children. Their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. They carried nothing with them but grief. They looked back at the burning planet as it shrank behind them, and none of them spoke. There were no words left. That ship drifted through space, running from scanners, running from the dark blades of alien ships that hunted them. For 3 days, the survivors lived in fear that every shadow in the stars meant the enemy had found them. On the 4th day, they reached Earth's listening post at the edge of the system. Their message was short, broken by static, but enough to strike horror into every human heart. "Dawnspire is gone. They killed us." They said humanity does not belong. The message spread across Earth like fire. In crowded cities, people watched the news screens with shock. In villages and towns, they gathered around radios, listening to the voices of survivors. Fear grew fast, but so did anger. Humanity had seen war before. They had fought each other for land, for power, for pride. But this was different. This was a war not started by humans. For the first time, Earth faced an enemy from beyond the stars. Leaders met in tall glass towers, their faces grim. Generals demanded fleets to be armed. Scientists whispered about weapons still hidden in research labs. Civilians marched in streets shouting for revenge. Humanity was no longer asking questions. Humanity was preparing for war. The aliens had thought Earth was weak, a planet too small to fight an empire. They believed destroying a few colonies would be enough to break the will of mankind. They believed humanity would retreat, would hide, would surrender. But they were wrong. On the ashes of Dawnspire, on the screams of the lost, Earth made its decision. They would not forgive. They would not forget. They would not stop. The survivors' voices became a warning that echoed everywhere. They came for our colonies. They burned our worlds. Now humanity rises. And in the deep silence of space, where stars burned cold and ancient, the war had already begun. Because Earth had only one answer to those who tried to erase them: erasure in return. The news of Dawnspire spread like a storm. It crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and moved through the steel towers of Earth's great cities. No place was untouched by it. On giant screens in crowded squares, people watched shaky footage from the survivor ship. flames rising over the colony, alien ships blotting out the sky, terrified voices crying in the dark. In schools, children asked their teachers why aliens hated them. In factories, workers stopped their machines to listen to the broadcasts. In quiet homes, families gathered close, their hands gripping tighter, afraid of the same fate. Humanity had dreamed of the stars. Now that dream was on fire. But fear was not the only thing that spread. Anger grew sharper with each hour. In the halls of government, leaders faced the greatest choice of their time. Some argued for caution, saying humanity was not ready for war against an empire that ruled the stars. They feared humanity would be crushed before the fight even began. But others stood firm, their voices cold. They spoke of history, of Earth's long wars, of how humanity had always been underestimated until it was too late. One general said, "We cannot beg for peace from those who want us erased. We must strike not only for Dawnspire but for every colony that still breathes." The council chamber fell silent. The choice was clear. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would fight. Orders moved quickly across Earth. Fleets that had been waiting in dry docks for decades were awakened. Old warships were pulled from orbiting stations, their hulls glowing as engineers worked without sleep. New ships were built faster than ever before. Factories roared day and night, producing weapons, armor, and engines of war. Soldiers trained in deserts, mountains, and oceans, their voices shouting in unison. Scientists worked in hidden labs, dusting off secret projects once thought too dangerous. Even civilians volunteered, saying they would carry supplies, build ships, or fight with their own hands if needed. The spirit of humanity was no longer divided by nations. They were united by rage. In the midst of this storm, the survivors of Dawnspire were brought before the leaders of Earth. They stood in a great hall, still pale, still haunted by the memories of fire. One child, no older than 10, stepped forward. Her small voice echoed in the silence. "They said we do not belong among the stars," she whispered. "Please, why prove them wrong?" The hall erupted with determination. Humanity had found its reason to fight, but the enemy was strong. The alien empire, known now by intercepted signals as the Velari Dominion, had existed for thousands of years. They had crushed countless species, enslaved whole worlds, and erased histories. Their fleets were vast. Their technology was older and sharper than anything humanity had faced. Still, Earth's leaders believed in something stronger than ships or weapons. They believed in human will. Admirals crafted a strategy not of brute force but of cunning. They knew humanity could not match the Dominion in size. But they could strike in ways no alien would expect. Guerrilla tactics, ambushes, deception. All lessons learned from centuries of Earth's bloody wars. Humanity would not fight fair. They would fight to win. And so the first counterstrike was planned. In a hidden station on the edge of the solar system, a small fleet prepared to launch. The soldiers aboard were young, some barely out of training. They whispered to each other, some with fear, some with pride. They knew they were not only defending Earth, they were carrying the weight of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed. As the fleet left orbit, the narrator's voice could be heard in every home on Earth, carried through broadcasts and messages. Dawnspire was not the end. It was the beginning. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not retreat. We will strike, and we will not stop until the stars themselves remember our wrath. In the cold darkness of space, the ships moved silently, heading toward the unknown. Somewhere ahead, the Dominion waited, certain that humanity was broken. But in truth, humanity was more dangerous than ever, because Earth had learned the most painful lesson. To survive, they must erase the empire that had tried to erase them. The war had not only begun, the war had already changed everything. The hidden strength. The Velari Dominion did not fear Earth. To them, humanity was small and fragile, a young race clinging to a single blue planet. The loss of a colony was nothing compared to the power of their empire. Their fleet stretched across 100 star systems. Their armies had erased entire civilizations without pause. To the Velari, humanity was only the next name on a long list of the conquered. But arrogance blinds the strong. The first human fleet left Earth under silence. Only a few ships compared to the Dominion's vast armadas, but each one carried a new kind of resolve. Their hulls were old, their weapons sometimes crude, but their crews were fierce. What the Dominion did not know was that humanity had studied war for thousands of years. Every nation on Earth had fought, lost, adapted, and fought again. Humanity's greatest strength was not in numbers, but in memory. Their first target was not a world, but a supply convoy. Dominion ships carried fuel, weapons, and soldiers across space, never expecting resistance. They had grown careless. When the convoy drifted through the quiet dark, human ships waited in the shadows of an asteroid belt. Engines were cold, weapons hidden, every light shut down. The Dominion ships moved closer, their commanders unaware. Then humanity struck. Missiles launched from silence. Railguns fired with precision. The first Dominion cruiser exploded before it even raised shields. The second was torn open by hidden torpedoes. The humans had used the oldest trick of war and surprise. Before the convoy could send warnings, half of it was gone. The survivors tried to fight, but their formations broke in panic. Within minutes, the convoy was nothing but burning wreckage floating in the black. The humans did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They moved quickly, taking what they needed: fuel, data, and alien technology. Then they vanished into the dark, leaving nothing behind but fire. The message was clear. Humanity had begun to strike back. Reports of the ambush spread across the Dominion. At first they laughed. How could such a small species matter? But when more convoys went silent, when border outposts stopped responding, their laughter turned uneasy. Humanity was striking everywhere, always unseen, always brutal. One Dominion commander sent a warning to his superiors. These humans are not like others. They do not fight with honor. They fight like predators. Meanwhile, on Earth, every victory became fuel for greater rage. Survivors of the colonies watched the reports, their eyes sharp with vengeance. The people no longer felt weak. They believed that even the strongest empire could bleed. In secret labs, human scientists worked day and night. They studied alien wreckage, breaking apart engines, weapons, and shields. They copied what they could, twisted it into new forms, and built machines the Dominion had never seen before. One weapon, simple yet deadly, was designed to overload Dominion shields with pulses of raw energy. Another, born from human creativity, used decoys and false signals to make human fleets appear larger than they were. Humans did not outmatch the Dominion in power, but they outwitted them. The second wave of attack struck deeper. Small Dominion colonies went silent. Their skies burned as human fleets arrived without warning, hit fast and vanished again. No prisoners, no hesitation, only destruction. Where once the Dominion had declared, "You do not belong among the stars," humanity answered with fire. "Then you will not belong either." The Velari grew restless. Their fleet stretched thin as they tried to protect their borders. They had never fought an enemy like this. One that refused to stand still, one that turned every shadow into a weapon, and still, Earth pushed harder. On the third month of war, a human fleet struck a Dominion garrison world. This time it was no ambush. It was open attack. Dominion soldiers rushed to defend, believing their numbers would crush the invaders. But the humans fought with a fury that broke lines apart. Tanks roared, soldiers moved with speed, and aircraft struck targets with precision. The humans did not fight to hold ground. They fought only to destroy. When the dust cleared, the Dominion base was gone, nothing left but ruins and silence. The galaxy began to whisper. Other species, long oppressed by the Dominion, watched with new eyes. They had believed the humans too weak, too fragile, too late to matter. But now stories spread, stories of humans striking in the dark, of Dominion fleets falling, of worlds burned in revenge. Some species began to hope. If the humans could rise, maybe others could too. Back on Earth, leaders studied maps of the stars. Each red mark was a lost colony. Each blue mark was a target yet to fall. The council spoke in low voices. They no longer asked if they could win. They only asked how far they must go. In the center of the chamber, one admiral stood and said words that chilled everyone listening. "For every colony they erased, we will erase 10 of theirs. Only then will the stars be safe for us." The decision was made. Humanity was not fighting only for survival. They were fighting for dominance. The Velari Dominion had awakened an enemy unlike any they had known. Small, yes. Fragile, yes. But also relentless. The kind of enemy that would rather burn everything than submit. And as the war grew, one truth became clear. Humanity was not defending itself anymore. Humanity was learning how to erase an empire. The Velari Dominion had ruled the stars for ages. Their fleets had erased countless worlds. Their banners had flown over endless skies. But for the first time in their long history, Fear began to spread through their empire. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to break after losing their colonies. Instead, they grew more dangerous with every strike. Convoys vanished. Border stations went silent. Entire garrisons were wiped out. At first, the Dominion called these small losses, but as months passed, the numbers grew too heavy to ignore. Human fleets, once few and fragile, now appeared everywhere, armed with weapons taken and twisted from Dominion technology. Their ships were faster, their tactics sharper, their ambushes impossible to predict. The Dominion sent larger fleets, determined to crush this rebellion once and for all. One such fleet moved toward the colony of Halrus, a mining world filled with fuel reserves. The Velari expected an easy victory. They expected humanity to run, but the humans did not run. They waited. Hidden in the ice rings of the system, human warships lay silent. Their hulls were coated with stolen Velari tech, making them invisible to scanners. As the Dominion fleet passed through, confident and careless, the humans struck. The first attack shattered the command ship in seconds. Explosions tore through its spine, splitting it apart like paper. The Dominion fleet panicked, turning their guns in every direction, but the humans were everywhere and nowhere at once. Missiles rained from the shadows. Railguns punched holes through armor. Dominion ships burned, one after another. When the smoke cleared, Halrus was free, and more than 50 Dominion warships were gone. The galaxy had never seen such a thing. On Earth, people cheered when the news arrived. Crowds filled the streets, waving banners, shouting the names of soldiers they had never met. Humanity had done more than fight back. Humanity had taken a Dominion fleet and destroyed it completely. But in the chambers of Earth's leaders, the mood was darker. Victory was not enough anymore. The Council studied maps of the stars, their eyes cold. The Dominion was too large, too old, too cruel. If left alive, they would strike again. One leader said softly, "This cannot end with peace. It must end with their extinction." And so the war changed. No longer was it a fight to survive. It became a campaign of erasure. For every human life lost, 10 alien lives would be taken. For every colony burned, 10 Dominion worlds would fall. The attacks grew larger, more ruthless. Human fleets no longer struck only convoys or outposts. They burned cities, shattered strongholds, and left nothing standing. Dominion civilians fled in terror, their once proud empire trembling before the fury of a younger race. The Dominion tried to rally. They sent their grand fleet, the largest in their history, to the edge of human space. Thousands of ships, each one carrying the power to destroy a world. The Dominion believed this would be the final blow. They believed humanity would finally bow, but humanity had prepared. When the grand fleet arrived, they found not weakness, but fire. Earth's fleets poured into the system from hidden routes, surrounding the Dominion from every side. Mines exploded, tearing apart their formations. Human ships struck fast, then disappeared into the dark, forcing the Dominion to chase shadows. The battle lasted for days. Stars lit with fire. Planets shook under the echoes of war. Dominion admirals shouted orders, their fleets breaking apart under the storm. The humans fought with a rage no machine could measure. They did not retreat. They did not stop. At last, the Dominion's grand fleet was broken. Thousands of their ships scattered, destroyed, or fleeing into the void. The humans stood bloodied but unbroken. The war had reached its turning point. The galaxy watched in silence. Species long enslaved by the Dominion whispered of freedom. Others feared humanity's rise, wondering if one empire was only being replaced with another. Back on Earth, the celebrations were louder than ever. But under the cheers, something darker grew. Humanity had discovered a hunger not only to survive but to conquer. One survivor of Dawnspire, now a soldier, stood before a camera and spoke words that would echo across the stars. "We do not forgive, we do not forget, and we do not stop. For every star they ruled, we will turn it dark." The Dominion had thought themselves eternal, but now their empire was falling piece by piece. Their fleets shattered, their worlds burning, their history crumbling, and humanity showed no sign of mercy. The war was no longer about defense. It was about extinction. And soon the humans would reach the Dominion's heart. The Velari Dominion had once stretched across the stars, their banners planted on countless worlds. But now their maps were filled with silence. One by one, their colonies had gone dark. One by one, their fleets had been erased. And behind every loss, humanity stood, cold and relentless. What began as survival had become something greater. Humanity was no longer only defending its place among the stars. Humanity was shaping the stars to its will. The Dominion's heart lay in a cluster of systems known as the Valar Core. Here the first of their kind had risen. Here their palaces glittered with wealth, stolen from 100 species. Here their rulers still believed they could stand against the tide. They were wrong. Earth's fleets gathered on the edge of the core, larger and sharper than ever before. Thousands of ships stretched across the void, their hulls scarred by battles but burning with purpose. Soldiers stood ready, their eyes hardened by loss and vengeance. No one asked if the war should continue. They already knew the answer. The order was given. Humanity advanced. The first world of the core burned within hours. Human ships rained fire from orbit, tearing apart defenses that had stood for centuries. Cities crumbled. Palaces fell. Survivors fled into the dark, but there was no safe place left to hide. Humanity had become the storm. On the second world, Dominion civilians raised white banners hoping for mercy. None came. The humans did not pause. Their fleets moved on, leaving silence where once life had been. To the humans, mercy was weakness, and weakness had no place in the new galaxy. The Dominion's rulers sent desperate pleas for peace. They offered tribute, territory, surrender, but Earth ignored them. The time for words had passed the day Dawnspire burned. Now there was only one outcome: extinction. The battle for Valar Prime, the capital of the Dominion, was the final blow. It was a world of shining towers and endless armies, defended by the last of the Dominion's great fleet. The rulers believed they could hold the humans back here, at least long enough to survive. But when humanity arrived, the sky itself split. The first wave of human ships struck with a fury unmatched in the war. Missiles fell like rain. Railguns carved through the fleet. Dominion ships broke apart under the storm. On the ground, soldiers fought through the streets, each step burning with vengeance. Towers collapsed, fire spread, and the world that had once ruled the stars turned into a grave. In the final hours, the Dominion's rulers sent a message directly to Earth. Their voices shook, filled with fear. "We surrender. Spare our world. We will kneel. We will serve." The answer was silence. Moments later, the sky lit brighter than a sun. The human fleet unleashed its final strike, erasing Valar Prime in fire. The capital of the Dominion was gone. The empire that had lasted thousands of years ended in a single night. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Some species wept with joy, freed from chains that had bound them for generations. Others watched with dread, realizing what humanity had become. The Valari Dominion was no more, but something new had taken its place. A race that would not forgive, not forget, and not stop. On Earth, people filled the streets once again. They cheered, they sang, they held each other in triumph. But in the council chambers, the leaders sat in silence. Victory had come, yes, but it had come at a cost. Humanity had looked into the abyss of extinction, and instead of breaking, they had become the abyss. A single message was broadcast across the stars, carried by human ships to every system. The voice was cold, stripped of mercy. "We did not seek this war, but if you destroy us, we will erase you. This is the law of humanity." The message was not only a warning, it was a promise. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers began. Some called humanity heroes, others called them monsters. But all agreed on one truth: humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not through peace but through fire. The Dominion was gone, its history erased, its world silenced, its people scattered into dust, and in the silence that followed, the galaxy trembled, because the humans had shown what they truly were: not prey, not victims, predators, and the stars would never forget it.